Hello, readers. I am so excited that we are going to be starting our new unit on fantasy reading. This is one of my absolute favorite genres, favorite unit to teach. I hope that you are able to feel how amazing fantasy writing and reading can be. So today we're going to start with researching the setting. Remember, the setting is where and when the story takes place. So we're going to start and think about, well, why do we even read fantasy? Well, the stories are absolutely incredible. And when you study fantasy, you're really studying the human condition. And if you become a powerful reader of fantasy, you'll likely become a power reader of all texts. Pretty cool. So today, I want to teach you that as fantasy readers, our first task is to figure out not just where our story happens, right? We start to figure that stuff out in kindergarten. Where does it take place? This story takes place on a farm or in a house or in a school. But we need to think about now what kind of place it is. One way you can do this work is to investigate clues about the time period and important magical elements using covers, blurbs, and details from the beginning of a story for your research. And I always like to start off with just a couple of clips. So we're going to take a look at a few different types of settings that are often seen in the fantasy genre. And the first type of setting is from the movie Lord of the Rings, also a very well-known book series. And this is a medieval world of Middle Earth where there's swords and horses. So let's go ahead and watch this clip and check out this setting.
Down from the door I must go. The road goes ever on and on. Down from the door and our Father has gone.
You're late.
A wizard is never late, Frodo Baggins. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.
It's wonderful to see you, Gandalf.
You don't think I miss your Uncle Bilbo's birthday? So how is the old rascal? I hear it's going to be a party of special magnificence.
You know Bilbo. He's got the whole place in an uproar.
Well, that should please him.
Half the Shire's been invited. And the rest of them are turning up anyway.
And so life in the Shire goes on, very much as it has this past age, full of its own comings and goings, with change coming slowly, if it comes at all. For things are made to endure in the Shire, passing from one generation to the next. There's always been a Baggins living here under the hill in Bag End. There always will be.
Okay, so we can see in that scene that the Shire is a place where, sorry, my screen doesn't want to go full screen again. That's okay. It's that medieval world, Middle Earth. There's horses. They live underneath the grass. There's these chimneys. There's a water power, right? So we know that within this realm, like, there's going to be some sort of magic, right? Gandalf says he's a wizard. So it introduces it to us. We get to understand it. Now let's take a look at another type of fantasy setting from Narnia. And this type of fantasy setting is when two worlds are existing side by side, but not really interacting with each other. Let's check this one out. Okay, so in that clip, we see that Narnia and the regular world exist side by side, right? Just through a wardrobe. That's from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the Chronicles of Narnia. And sometimes you'll see that in fantasy as well. You might also see a futuristic world. Let me. Hang on. I'm going to shrink this and then make it bigger again. So you might also see a futuristic world where it's different, but it can be troubled. And this is like Hunger Games. So let's go ahead and check this one out.
Welcome, welcome, as we celebrate the 75th anniversary and third quarter quell of the Hunger Games. As always, ladies first. The female tribute from District 12, Katniss Everdeen. Wonderful. And now for the middle. The male tribute from District 12, Hamish Abernathy.
I volunteer as tribute.
I can't let you do that.
You can't stop me.
Peter.
Let go.
Very well. The tributes from District 12, Katniss Everdeen and Peter Malar. Well, all that remains is oh no. But Katniss! I get to say goodbye. Katniss!
Good plan. Straight to the train.
No, I have to say goodbye. Katniss! No. Goodbye.
Okay, so we can see, remember we're thinking about setting, and the setting of the Hunger Games is futuristic after a war has happened, and the world looks very different, but we can see similarities to our own world. And lastly, we're going to go to one that we're familiar with via our read aloud, and we're going to be looking at a clip from Harry Potter. So it's an ordinary world, everything seems normal, but you can see kind of magic infiltrating into the setting.
Make it move!
Move!
Move! He's asleep! He's boring. Sorry about him. He doesn't understand what it's like, lying there day after day, watching people press their ugly faces in on you. Can you hear me? It's just, I've never talked to a snake before. Do you? I mean, do you talk to people often? You're from Burma, aren't you? Was it nice there? Do you miss your family? I see. That's me as well. I never knew my parents either. Mummy! Dad, come here! Can you believe what this snake is doing?
Thanks.
Anytime.
What happened?
I swear I don't know! 1 minute the glass was there and then it was gone. It was like magic.
There's no such thing as magic.
Okay, so we see there in that setting, we have an ordinary world, but it's starting to get infiltrated by magic. And that's another setting that we can see in fantasy. We're going to start by looking at this picture book here, The Paperback Princess. And when we're thinking about setting, when we're researching the setting of the books that we're reading, we want to first pay attention to the cover art. We want to look at the blurb if it has one, the title, the first page, and the next page. So the cover of The Paperback Princess, again, thinking about setting. We see some sky over here with some clouds. It looks like some sort of cave. We obviously have our character here, right, a dragon, and we've got who we can assume is the princess wearing a paper bag. We look at the first page. Elizabeth was a beautiful princess. She lived in a castle and had expensive princess clothes. She was going to marry a prince named Ronald. So again, we see that setting coming in. We understand she's a princess, but it makes me wonder, how does she get here, right? Behind her, we can see the throne, we can see the crest, we can see outside as well. Then we want to be looking at the second page. We'll see if that wants to load up for us. It doesn't. You can kind of see it down here. Let me go ahead and I will pull it up for us on my Kindle reader. If this decides it wants to work, that is. I think it's under Kindle Unlimited. We'll try there. Borrowed. Let's see. Kindle books. Oh, here we go. Manage our content. So let me go ahead and open this up. And if it will let me. Oh no. You gotta love technology. Okay, that's alright. So pretend we looked at the second page. Now we're going to take a look at Harry Potter. And we're going to look again at the cover. So we see the cover here. We've got the snake. We've got an owl. We know that there's some sort of magical elements. And the blurb on the back tells us that Harry lives under the stairs. We learn there's magic around him and that he's going to go to a new setting, Hogwarts, School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Now, if we look at the first page of Harry Potter, The Boy Who Lived, right? We see right away that Mr. and Mrs. Dursley of number 4 Privet Drive, right? So we've got their address right here that gives us a little bit of information about their setting. They were the last people you'd expect to be involved in anything strange or mysterious because they just didn't hold with such nonsense, right? Mr. Dursley is the director of a firm, and as we keep reading, we find out that they have Dudley, right? You guys have already read or listened to this, so I'm kind of skimming it through. Let's see. So we know that they live on a street with neighbors, and that it was a gray Tuesday is when our story starts. Remember, setting is not just place, but it's time and place. If we go to the second page of the story, we see that some of that magic starts to infiltrate the setting, right? A tawny owl fluttered past the window, and he says goodbye. He leaves the house, and then at the corner of the street, he noticed the first sign of something peculiar, a cat reading a map, right? So this right here, that's that magic being infiltrated into the setting. So as we're researching, we're figuring this out. What could he have been thinking of? It had been a trick of the light. He stared at the cat. It stared back. He watched the cat. It was now reading the sign that said Privet's Drive. No, looking at the cat. Cats couldn't read maps or signs. So then, as we keep reading, we see more of that magic kind of infiltrating. People in cloaks. People in funny clothes. A new fashion. The man had to be older than he was and wearing an emerald green cloak. So all of these little hints are telling us that magic is part of the story. And we figured that out by researching the setting. As you read today, your fantasy books, you're going to want to use these strategies you know to be alert to details about these places and their physical and psychological implications. You want to make sure you're researching carefully using the cover, the blurb, and all the details in the beginning of the story. Remember to fill in the think about in your notebooks, right? I attached the documents you need for today, as well as to use the setting parking lot jot. So you guys will be receiving this attached to your assignment for today, and you can see an example of researching the setting up here. And then I want you to do this think about which places are most important in the series, in the book you're reading, and how do those change and who has power there. And then as you continue to read, you're going to do these jots. So any thinking about setting, you would click here, you would type it in, and then you're just going to move it right over here. I want to remind you that you are doing this via your Epic collection. So once you're in Epic and you find your name, right, I'm just going to go ahead and choose one of you. Oh, maybe not. Oh, maybe not. Let me exit out of that and I'll log in as me. I'm telling you guys, technology and Mrs. V are not working seamlessly today. Okay. So when you get into Epic, you will see in your library or in your mailbox that I have sent you this collection, your fantasy book clubs, and you're choosing which one of these books you want to read. So let's say I wanted to read Game World. Remember, the first thing we want to do is we want to look at the blurb. So the blurb on Epic Books are right here, right? There's the blurb. Middle school terrifies Dylan till he unlocks a real-life world inside a video game. So we know already where this setting is going to kind of take place, right? Inside of a video game. But then we would want to go and start reading Chapter 1, the first and second page, to kind of figure out what is going on in this story and what this setting is going to be. You guys will be able to choose which of the books you want to read from the Epic collection. I just ask you to keep track of that so that I know what you're reading in the shared class bookshelf. And remember that that is located in our Google Classroom. Loading. Under classwork, things you need to access daily, your community of readers bookshelf. So you can be adding these fantasy books to that. Again, guys, after you finish this mini lesson, you are going to be sophisticated readers that research the setting and also think about power. Who has the power? And what kinds of power are there in your story? And then you will be filling in slide 1 and slide 2. You do not need to do all 6 sticky notes, but you need to do as many as you can in terms of setting and power. If you have any questions, please email me. I know this was a longer than normal mini lesson. I know I had a few technological glitches. I appreciate you sticking it through. Happy reading!